What's your name?
Well, my name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
Blazing Saddles, if summed up in the simplest way, can be captured in just 3 words: dare to break rules. Released in 1974, the film was not merely a box office sensation. It became a landmark in the history of American cinema for boldly pushing past every boundary of comedy satire and the pursuit of creative freedom. Yet what few people realize is that behind the scenes of Blazing Saddles lies a trove of untold secrets. Actor Gene Wilder once revealed many little-known stories about this masterpiece, ranging from terrifying mishaps during filming that nearly caused the entire project to collapse to the director's wild and outrageous decisions, such as forcing actors to perform with a cloth stuffed in their mouths, along with countless other shocking scenes that left audiences stunned. So, what exactly happened behind the camera? And the 5th revelation might just make it impossible for you to ever watch this film the same way again. 1. The terrifying incident on set in Gene Wilder's turning point. When Mel Brooks first began filming Blazing Saddles, the role of Waco Kid was originally given to Gig Young, a veteran of Hollywood and an Academy Award winner. At that moment, Gig Young seemed like the perfect choice. He had the reputation, the experience, and the weary aura of an old gunslinger that the film demanded. However, the instant the cameras started rolling, a nightmare struck. On the very first day of shooting, Gig Young broke into a cold sweat and began to stammer incoherently. At first, the crew assumed he was simply getting into character, but within minutes, the truth became clear: he was suffering from acute alcohol withdrawal. By mid-morning, Young collapsed. The cameras stopped abruptly, and the entire set went into full emergency mode. There was no time for another audition, nor was there a chance to negotiate a new contract. Director Mel Brooks had only one option left: pick up the phone and call the one man he trusted completely, Gene Wilder. The conversation lasted only a few sentences. Wilder did not ask about the script, the salary, or the details of the role. He responded with a single line: "I'll be there." Less than 24 hours later, Wilder arrived on set. Without rehearsal, without preparation, he slipped seamlessly into the character of Waco Kid, as though he had been carrying the role within him for years. The outcome was astonishing. Wilder not only pulled the film back from the brink of collapse, but he also completely reinvented the image of Waco Kid. Through his transformative performance, the character became a biting symbol of satire, perfectly reflecting the chaos of the era. And it all began with a single phone call. After agreeing to join Blazing Saddles, Gene Wilder made just one demand: Waco Kid would not be used as a direct source of laughter for the audience. In a film overflowing with madness and absurdity, Wilder deliberately chose the opposite path. He shaped Waco Kid into a somber, melancholic shadow, standing in stark contrast to the comedic chaos surrounding him. Mel Brooks himself described the character as the backbone of the entire movie. While Hedley Lamarr and the others pushed their ridiculousness to the extreme, Wilder became the ghost of the Old West, weary, silent, delivering lines that were dry and chilling as ice. A prime example comes when Waco Kid, lounging lazily on a bunk in the jail cell, introduces himself in a flat, half-dazed tone. Instead of turning the moment into cheap comedy, Wilder transformed it into a tragicomic scene, provoking laughter that carried an eerie resonance. This was not a stroke of spontaneity, but the careful calculation of a master. Wilder understood that in comedy, contrast is the ultimate weapon. For a joke to strike sharply, there must be silence. For chaos to peak, there must be a still center. And Waco Kid was precisely that center, the calm within the storm. Yet this was also a profoundly risky choice. In most films, such a gloomy character would have been overshadowed by louder, flashier roles. But Wilder, with his artistry, measured every glance, every pause, even counting the beats of each moment. And the result? Something no one had anticipated, a character that seemed too serious became the funniest highlight of the entire movie. That was the moment when Wilder reversed the tide, rescuing the film from descending into chaos. And once you grasp how Wilder transformed Waco Kid into the heart of Blazing Saddles, you'll be even more eager to uncover the extraordinary behind-the-scenes stories that shaped this unforgettable character. 2. The secrets behind the character of Waco Kid. Waco Kid was never just a comedic role. He had once been a legendary sharpshooter, deadly accurate with every shot. Yet now he was nothing more than an empty shell hollowed out by alcohol, worn down by exhaustion, and crushed beneath a profound disillusionment with life. Behind his half-lidded eyes, behind the crooked smile and the seemingly careless remarks, lay a broken soul, a heart shattered by unbearable loneliness. While the other characters dove headfirst into mockery and absurdity, Gene Wilder deliberately chose a completely different path. He transformed the trembling of Waco Kid's hands, the heavy sighs and the vacant stare into deep psychological scars, the lingering marks of a life consumed by violence and loss. A striking example comes when the character recounts his past as the fastest gun in the West. His voice carries no pride, no bravado. Instead, it resounds like a painful confession, a bitter admission of a past that refuses to fade. Why did Wilder shape the character this way? Because he understood a universal truth. The funniest characters are often the ones who carry the deepest suffering. Waco Kid's pain never bursts forth in dramatic outcry, but instead smolders quietly throughout the entire film. The unanswered questions about his past linger like ghosts in the minds of the audience, compelling them to wonder how could a once mythic gunslinger have fallen into such ruin. This was an extraordinarily daring approach to performance, for in the 1970s, comedy typically thrived on exaggeration and noise. Yet Wilder proved that silence, melancholy, and restraint could also evoke laughter and reach the hearts of the audience in a way that was profoundly different. This was also the very philosophy of acting that Wilder embraced: no overacting, no falseness, no begging for laughs. He believed the audience was intelligent enough to discover the humor embedded within the raw truth of a character. And as a result, within a film built on absurdity, Waco Kid became its greatest tragedy: a trembling hand, a weary gaze, and a haunting sorrow that would never find resolution. But even though Wilder saved the entire film through the stillness of his performance behind the scenes, Blazing Saddles itself came dangerously close to never being released at all. 3. The film once stood on the brink of collapse under studio pressure. Although Blazing Saddles was a wildly outrageous comedy on screen behind the scenes, it was suffocatingly tense. Warner Brothers kept applying constant pressure, forcing director Mel Brooks to cut lines deemed too sensitive, even threatening several times to shut down the production entirely. The script became the prime target of relentless censorship. Scenes involving racial issues or political satire turned into the center of fierce disputes, pushing the entire project into a state as fragile as a thread about to snap. The Blazing Saddles crew had to endure grueling shooting schedules stretching from 12 to 14 hours a day, combined with the added strain of repeated retakes caused by Mel Brooks's almost obsessive perfectionism. With every small change Brooks made to his vision, the entire set had to adjust instantly, from lighting and cameras to costumes, forcing the already strained atmosphere into an even tighter chokehold. Amid this chaos, Gene Wilder quietly became the steadying force. While Brooks operated with explosive, impulsive energy, Wilder chose the opposite approach. He rarely raised his voice or sought attention, but every time he stepped in, the set seemed to gain a solid anchor. During the long, exhausting shoots, Wilder silently supported the younger actors. He guided them on how to pace their lines, how to emphasize just enough so that every comedic beat would land perfectly. He performed small yet subtle gestures, a nod, a gentle reminder, or a reassuring glance. These seemingly trivial actions significantly altered the rhythm of entire scenes. According to crew members, Wilder was like an emotional director working in the shadows. He quietly kept control, ensuring the film never descended into complete chaos. Without Gene Wilder, Blazing Saddles might never have become one of the most enduring comedic classics in the history of cinema. And then, right in the midst of the team's struggle with crushing studio pressure, Wilder suddenly came up with a bold idea. During a break, he pulled Mel Brooks aside and whispered, "Alive, alive. Do you hear me? Give me my creativity." That moment marked the seed of Young Frankenstein, another cinematic masterpiece that would come later. Yet to bring such masterpieces to life, Wilder needed more than just a spark of inspiration. He required a truly flawless team. And just when everything seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected twist struck, pushing the entire project to the brink of collapse right before filming was set to begin. 4. The Dream Team and the unexpected collapse right before the final hour. Before Blazing Saddles had the chance to ignite a frenzy at the box office, the name Richard Pryor was already closely tied to the project. Pryor was the original choice for the role of Sheriff Bart. Director Mel Brooks knew all too well Pryor's raw humor and fearless audacity could have turned the character into an immortal icon. Yet Hollywood has never been a place that always puts talent first. While Pryor devoted himself tirelessly to the script, injecting it with razor-sharp commentary on race and power, the executives at Warner Brothers began to grow uneasy. Terrified of potential scandals and aware of Pryor's struggles with substance abuse, they delivered a cold and final verdict. One source even revealed that Pryor once lost control while high. On that occasion, he appeared in a state of incoherence, which only heightened the studio's concerns about entrusting him with the lead role. After Pryor was denied, Cleavon Little officially took on the role of Sheriff Bart. Although Little delivered a performance filled with charm and charisma, many could not escape the lingering feeling that something was missing, that if Pryor had played the part, the role might have ascended to legendary status. However, the truth was far more complex. Mel Brooks later admitted that he himself had already abandoned the idea of casting Pryor, and the studio merely used insurance concerns as the justification to formalize the decision. Michael Schultz, a longtime collaborator and friend of Pryor, shared a far harsher perspective. Richard wrote the script, and Mel Brooks kicked him out. Even though he was erased from the screen, Richard Pryor's imprint remained like an undeniable ghost. Every line of dialogue, every satirical beat of Sheriff Bart was infused with Pryor's uncompromising edge. It was a bitter paradox, an actor who had helped shape the entire essence of a film, yet never appeared in it. Pryor had accomplished exactly that. Blazing Saddles became a masterpiece, but its perfect version, the one where Wilder and Pryor unleashed madness together, would forever remain Hollywood's greatest regret. And the strangeness did not end there. On the set of Blazing Saddles, yet another problem emerged from within the crew itself, forcing Mel Brooks to come up with bizarre methods just to keep the actors working. 5. The crew laughed so hard. They had to stuff handkerchiefs in their mouths on the director's orders. Gene Wilder stepped into Blazing Saddles with an outward calm so intense it was almost suffocating. Yet, behind the camera there was nothing but a storm of chaos. Many of his most brilliant moments nearly had to be discarded, not because his acting was unconvincing, but because the entire set was laughing so hard that filming could not continue. With his unexpected delivery lines, spoken as lightly as a breeze but striking right at the comedic pressure points of everyone around him, Wilder repeatedly caused scenes to fall apart. The laughter was so thunderous that director Mel Brooks often had to run outside just to keep the noise from bleeding into the final recording. To contain this wave of laughter breaking the film, Brooks devised an equally humorous strategy. He handed out white handkerchiefs to the entire crew. Anyone who felt the urge to laugh had to stuff one into their mouth. If Brooks saw multiple white cloths trembling, that was the signal that the scene was going exceedingly well. This undercover quality control system quickly became the most effective tool Brooks had to rein in the laughter. One of the most unforgettable moments came when Waco Kid encouraged Bart. You have to remember that they are just simple farmers, people of the land, the common clay of the New West. You know, morons. This line had not been scripted in advance. It was an improvised stroke of genius from Wilder. It left Cleveland Little and the entire crew unable to stop laughing. That subtle, offbeat timing, unexpected yet profoundly genuine, brought a warmth and sincerity to Blazing Saddles that made it even more memorable. Unfortunately, many other brilliant moments never reached the audience. According to commentary on the DVD and film blogs, several scenes that delved deeper into the psychology of Waco Kid, exploring his origins and pain, were cut. The reason given was to maintain the film's brisk pace, ensuring that quiet, somber moments did not disrupt the relentless rhythm of comedy. This raises a lingering question. Had those scenes been kept, how much deeper would the character of Waco Kid have become? Would the film have slowed down? Or might it have touched an emotional level that few comedies could ever hope to achieve? In a film overflowing with loud, raucous laughter, there were also moments where you could hear nothing at all because the crew themselves were laughing too hard. Yet hidden behind those endless bursts of laughter, Gene Wilder was quietly fulfilling a very serious mission to protect the soul of the film through extreme and utterly unexpected means. 6. Gene Wilder was willing to do whatever it took to protect the script, even if it meant confronting Hollywood. When Warner Brothers began to panic over the vulgar lines and the biting satire that cut straight into the issue of racism, a wave of demands for cuts was issued. They wanted to blunt the sharp edge of the film. But Wilder had only one firm response: never. He was neither the director nor the producer, yet from the very beginning he had stood beside Mel Brooks as a steadfast companion. His stance was unmistakably clear and left no room for compromise. Don't retreat, don't cut, don't let them take away the very reason this film exists. In tense closed-door meetings, Wilder constantly encouraged Brooks to preserve the raw, biting tone of the satire even when the studio hinted at withdrawing its support. He understood the risks all too well, but he held on to one unshakable belief: comedy must dare to make audiences uncomfortable if it is to expose the filth of truth. Strip away that edge, and the film would be reduced to nothing more than an easy, forgettable farce. When the studio demanded that every racial slur be erased from the script, or that the townspeople be turned into harmless fools, Wilder stood his ground with unwavering opposition. His defiance was precisely what made the executives hesitate. After the resounding success of the producers, Wilder's voice carried significant weight, and the knowing look he gave Brooks became a solid anchor, reinforcing the director's vision completely. For Wilder, Blazing Saddles was never just a comedy. It was a declaration, a challenge. If audiences were shocked or offended, all the better. Because comedy was never meant to soothe, it was meant to tear apart the mask of hypocrisy that covered society, from the police to politics and even Hollywood itself. Would Blazing Saddles have retained its raw, unflinching edge without Wilder? That is hard to say. Brooks had the vision, but it was Wilder who transformed that vision into an unshakable fortress. In a film that shattered every rule, he fought a battle that was quiet yet no less fierce. He didn't need to shout, he simply stood firm. And because of him, Blazing Saddles survived intact to become one of the boldest comedies in the history of American cinema. And then, just when everything seemed to have finally fallen into place, an offhand remark from Wilder during a break unexpectedly became the spark that ignited the birth of one of the greatest films Hollywood has ever seen. 7. The greatest idea in history began with an offhand remark. Amid the chaos overflowing with laughter on the set of Blazing Saddles, when the crew still hadn't stopped roaring with joy, Gene Wilder quietly approached Mel Brooks. With no script in hand and without any grand preamble, he simply blurted out one line between two takes: "Mel, What if Dr. Frankenstein's grandson wanted to reject the family legacy? At first, it sounded like nothing more than a casual joke, but in that very moment, a spark was lit. An idea appeared out of nowhere, one that would later become one of the greatest comedies in cinematic history, Young Frankenstein. Yet, in the beginning, Mel Brooks simply brushed it aside. He was far too exhausted, consumed with the overwhelming task of managing a chaotic and pressure-filled project like Blazing Saddles. But Wilder refused to give up. He didn't shout, he didn't push, but instead quietly drafted the first version, patiently nurturing the idea piece by piece. One day, when Brooks finally read the draft, he was stunned. The magical blend of satire, reverence, and vivid characters hit him immediately. This was no fleeting idea, it was a golden one. Within only a few days, that offhand remark had transformed into a real project, and Young Frankenstein began to take shape. Had it not been for that spontaneous moment on the set of Blazing Saddles, the world might never have known Young Frankenstein as it does today. For Mel Brooks, Wilder was no longer merely an actor. He had become a co-architect, someone who helped shape the soul and rhythm of the film. Just as he had done in Blazing Saddles, Wilder carried with him his greatest secret weapon, restraint and emotional truth amidst waves of laughter. It was this instinct that elevated him beyond being just a performer of another man's vision, transforming him into the creator of vision itself. And in the end, when both masterpieces were finally born, what remained was not only thunderous laughter, but also a daring cinematic legacy. Blazing Saddles still stands tall, a powerful testament to the force of comedy when it dares to confront the very things no one else dares to speak of. The legacy of Blazing Saddles in 1974. Mel Brooks's Western comedy Blazing Saddles premiered and immediately caused a seismic shock. It was not merely a piece of light entertainment on the big screen, but more like a ticking time bomb hurled straight into America's living rooms, shattering the rigid conventions Hollywood had clung to for decades. With its boldness and razor-sharp satire, the film left behind an undeniable cultural legacy, permanently altering the way audiences perceive comedy. Instead of dodging sensitive topics, Blazing Saddles fearlessly placed issues of racism, sexuality, and societal hypocrisy at the very heart of its story. The film made no attempt to soften its language, dialogue, or imagery using raw edges to create bitter laughter that forced viewers to confront uncomfortable truths. That daring choice ignited fierce controversy, but at the same time paved the way for generations of dark comedies, political satires, and social parodies to come. The film proved that laughter could be a powerful weapon of criticism, entertaining yet forcing people to reflect deeply on injustice. Blazing Saddles was more than just a parody of the Western genre, it was a revolution in storytelling itself. Mel Brooks broke the fourth wall, blended timelines, and abruptly yanked audiences out of the cinematic illusion. One of the most unforgettable moments came when the characters suddenly burst out of the Western set, ran straight into a theater, and continued their brawl there. This inventive style inspired countless filmmakers afterward, including the Zucker-Abraham Zucker trio with Airplane, as well as iconic animated series like The Simpsons and Family Guy, which borrowed and expanded on this unconventional narrative approach. Before Blazing Saddles, Hollywood often treated comedy as nothing more than light-hearted amusement. The film upended that definition, completely transforming laughter into a powerful tool for questioning and critique. It marked a turning point that laid the foundation for socially incisive programs such as Saturday Night Live and The Daily Show. The legacy of the film also owes much to the extraordinary performances that brought it to life. Gene Wilder as the alcoholic gunslinger Waco Kid delivered one of the most acclaimed comedic performances of all time, subtle, restrained, and strikingly different from the loud, boisterous humor audiences were used to. Mel Brooks, too, cemented his reputation as a master of parody and satire capable of blending absurdity with intelligence, to craft works that became timeless classics. Even today, Blazing Saddles remains a subject of debate. Was it a work of satirical genius, or simply a product of its time with looser moral boundaries? Whatever the perspective, Blazing Saddles continues to stand as an essential reference point whenever freedom of expression and the limits of comedy are discussed. Its legacy is not measured merely by awards or rankings, but by its courage to challenge the status quo, opening a new era for comedy and leaving an indelible mark on popular culture. Have you ever wondered what truly lies behind the dazzling lights of cinema? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe along with the little bell so you won't miss the next stories, the ones that just might make you exclaim, "Unbelievable!" And if you choose to skip it, well, I wouldn't dare predict what might happen next.